Well, hello and a very warm welcome to another edition of Choice Words, where we get the opportunity to speak to the great and the good of the worlds of UK fund research, UK fund selection. I'm Julian Marr, I'm Editorial Director of Wealthwise Media, and today I'm delighted to be talking to Dipesh Mesuria, who is Head of Fund Research at Border UK. Hello, Dipesh.
Hello, good afternoon, thank you for having me.
It's my absolute pleasure.
I'm not sure about the great, but I hope I am the good.
Well, it's great to see you at least and good to have you here. So let's see how we go. First question then, standard one, is nice and easy as well. What most excites you about the current investment outlook? What gives you pause for thought?
Well, I mean, we live in an interesting time right now as far as investing is concerned. Is it evolution? Is it revolution? I'm not sure. But it's really interesting and exciting that there's a diversification happening. The dominance of the US is certainly starting to seem to be waned, and there's an opportunity now, and it's really exciting for active management as well. You can clearly see that fundamentals are making a difference, but the scary thing is, and what worries me, and I suppose it's interesting now that even the volatility has volatility. And are we investing based on what Trump tweets? Because well, it's not tweet, is it? It's Truth Social. What he puts on
Truth Social. What he socials.
Yeah. And that makes it difficult to invest over the long term because there's just so much short-term noise. But what really interests me right now is the fact that if you can ignore that short-term noise, there is a real opportunity right now to lay the foundations for some excellent returns for our clients in the future.
It's very interesting. That is an interesting debate. We had this with a couple of our interviews a little while back. We did 3 or 4 in advance, and then the following week was Liberation Day, and I think, oh my God, this is really going to change what everyone said. But actually, because they looked so far out, it almost didn't, because the market was going up like this, but it sort of smooths out as the way Trump seems to work. What's in your process that helps you sort of tune out the noise and focus? What is it? Do you have actual physical process in place? Do you have behavioural tweaks?
Yeah, I mean, so first of all, our process is based around our investment committee, which is made up of some of the most senior members of Bordier. I'd like to say a lot of grey hairs, but also some with no hair at all. But there's also a diversity in the sense that there's some young members in there as well. And that collective decision making, where everyone has a voice, allows for some long-term thinking where people have seen these cycles, or investments are cycles, come and go, and we can stick to our process. And the process is what's key to everything. Make sure that you have a long-term investment view, and as long as the facts don't fundamentally change dramatically in the short term, that long-term view holds, and then stick to that process.
Great stuff, thank you. So I'd throw that little curveball in for you there. We talked about the macro, let's focus in on the stock selection side. What is it that, what counts as a must-have investment for you, and what counts as red flags in individual investments?
So I think, first of all, it's having an investment which is understandable. Sometimes investments are overly complicated. And I always look at it this way: if I couldn't explain to my mother why we're invested in something, I probably don't really understand it myself. So understand what it is you're investing in, understand the process behind that, understand the manager, understand the team. I really like it when a manager is passionate, especially when their fund is not doing well. The worst thing that happens when we interview managers is when they look distracted and they're staring out the window, or they look downbeaten and kind of don't seem to have that energy. If the fund isn't performing but they still have energy and they're banging the table and saying there's great value here, that's what we're looking for in a manager. And also alignment with the client. We've got to remember that we're investing the money on behalf of our clients, and a team and investment process that's aligned with that is very important. If I was being flippant, I'd say that the red flags are the exact opposite. Of what I'm looking for in an investment. But I would also say style drift. Managers that are chasing performance because they've either had a period of underperformance and then they overly concentrate themselves in certain positions, or if they seem disinterested. So it's all about understanding what's driving performance, but understanding the people behind that performance as well.
That's very interesting. You mentioned complexity and fully understanding stuff. It brings me seamlessly on to alternative investments. To what degree do you think professional advisors should be considering alternatives or moving away from the so-called traditionals of bonds, equities, cash?
Well, I think that's a very interesting question, because today's alternatives will become tomorrow's mainstream. And therefore, we should always be looking for alternatives, because we should always be looking to enhance and develop that investment process. But in terms of whether that has a place in a client's portfolio, I'd say to some extent, absolutely it does. But only if you clearly understand it, that you understand what the drivers of performance and also the drivers of underperformance would be, how it matches or how it blends into the overall investment strategy, and then making sure that you're not investing in a fad, that you truly understand it. So people are talking about Bitcoin and things like that, and I don't have a kind of intellectual disagreement with that, but understand what it's doing in your portfolio, and if you can invest in that, then do so. But I think normal investments have plenty there for us anyway, so to a limit, alternatives are of interest, but it shouldn't form your core investment portfolio.
Yeah, fair enough. Looking beyond your communication, the law of your mother approach to communication, what drives your approach to talking to clients, and to what degree is it important to have the right sort of clients at Bordia who will come along on the full journey of investment and not bail out too early, not jump in too soon or whatever, and just be along the same time as you?
Sure. So I think to start with, I'd flip that question on its head and almost say the client should have the right investment manager rather than investment manager have the right client. And if the client's got the right investment manager, then they will naturally join with you on the journey. And I think what's really important about that is education and empathy, because in the modern world, information transfer is quite quick. Someone can easily go on to Google, or other search engines are available, and look at what's happening with Nvidia or Apple or Tesla or something like that, and then come to questions and go, well, why don't I have some of that in my portfolio or something? Now, you could say to someone who's in a decumulation stage of their investment journey that perhaps having half their portfolio in Tesla isn't a great idea, and that's the education part. And if you can get through to them, then that will make the difference in making sure that you have the right client. And at Bordia, we're really good because our portfolio managers have really good, strong relationships. So when there's been the various market schisms that have happened in the past, our portfolio managers have been very good at making sure that they speak to their clients. I think one of the FCA does a lot of good things, but sometimes they do some things that aren't probably intended but have unintended consequences. And that 10% drop letter where a client's portfolio dropped and you had to send it out. Now, in its own right, that's quite scary. You're having your morning coffee and you get that letter and then you're like, oh my God, what am I going to do? I've got to sell everything. But our portfolio managers were very good at backing that up with a call saying, don't worry, stick with it. The investment process stands, and that makes a great client journey. And if you can talk to your clients, empathize and understand their needs, then they're with you for the long journey. We have a really great client retention ratio, so we must be doing something right.
You would think so. And being very diplomatic in your adjectives for describing the FCA as well, so well played. Talk about AI. Do you see that as a threat or opportunity as a professional investor?
I see it as both. And that's probably a diplomatic answer. But I think with AI, it very much depends on how you interact with it. So are you a consumer of AI, or do you interact with it? So it was an interesting thing about AI, and I was listening to a webcast about deep learning. And they were saying that AI, you can go into AI and ask it a question, and it can give you an answer. and you're consuming that information. But the ones that really benefit from it are the ones that then go for the deep learning, go, okay, that's the answer, but why is it the answer? Why should this answer be better than any other answer? And AI as a tool can be very useful for that. It can also improve efficiencies. So we're currently looking at using AI to transcribe meetings. So that means that we don't have to actually spend time typing it up or anything in front of it, and we can interact with the client longer. We can analyze the information, so my team can spend more time analyzing the data rather than spending time writing it up. AI can do that for you, but it's the output and what you do with that matters, and that's where it can be useful, but used in the correct way and not just consumed, but actually interacted with.
Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic. Thank you for that. Well, personal question now. What was your path into investment? What would you be doing if you hadn't taken it?
My path into investment was a combination of necessity and accident, which I think are two of the key ingredients in any innovation. And it was purely a case of when I went to university, I needed to get a job. And I didn't want to work in a pub because I was fearful that I would just recycle my earnings back into, nowadays we'd call it reinvestment, let's put it that way. But I needed to get a job, and I went to university in a town where there were some financial call centers. So I picked up a night shift job working in a call center. And I basically found out that I had a natural aptitude for it, and it came easy to me. Like most people in life, I did a degree that had nothing to do with finance. I did a physics degree, but I found that I quite enjoyed finance, and it was the act of putting things together. So that's how I came into the industry. And then I did my Dick Whittington impression, came up to London. Leveraged off that client servicing role to work in finance, worked for an investment house, and then went on to the UK team there, and then so forth and so on.
What would you be doing in an alternative universe?
What would I be doing in an alternative universe? Interesting question in the sense that I think what I'd like to do is based on my passion, but then once you start doing it as a job, is that your passion? So I'm going to give a rather strange answer without explanation, which is I would probably be a bus driver.
Well, luckily I'm a useless journalist, so I won't interrogate that further. I'll just let it hang there. Okay, I like that.
Well, I
very philosophical. I mean,
yeah.
just a ...
Well, I can give you an explanation. Basically, when I came to London, I love riding buses. And it's a great way of seeing the world, because you can get on a bus, you don't know it's going to, well, you have an idea of the route, but you don't know what's along that route. And you see the world, and if you go past a street or a shop that you like, you get off your bus, you go in, you have a look, and you get back on the bus and continue on your journey. But whether I could stand being a bus driver in driving around in central London, probably not.
Very good. And also I hope you got, just my Zen printing of there, getting you to answer the question without me actually asking it. You see, this is
Indeed.
Indeed.
You're a great
Jedi.
interviewer.
The Jedi journalist. What's the biggest investment mistake you're prepared to admit to? What did you learn from it?
I don't think, well, I did make one big investment mistake, but it was a mistake that had no consequences, so I'm never going to admit to it. But the ones that I did make were lots of small ones, and I think not learning from your mistake is the biggest mistake. My daughter's school, I have a young daughter, and they have this concept of a marvelous mistake. So it's okay to make mistakes, just learn from them. So that's a roundabout way of not answering your question. So I'm going to return the Jedi mind trick on you.
Yeah, no, see, that's the trouble. Now I'm really interested by the big mistake with no consequences. I mean, apart from an interesting children's book title. There we go. All right, we'll let that one hang for the time being. We'll have to have a sequel. What's the best advice you've ever been given, apart from don't admit to the big mistake that had no consequences?
As I was being trained, it's fair to say that I was trained by some proper barrow boy bankers, you know, kind of people that wouldn't necessarily work in the industry today, but you learn massively from them. And the piece of advice, I was given two pieces of advice. One was put to me more colourfully than I will now say it.
Good.
But, you probably want it broadcastable, so I'm going to. And the advice was, sometimes the people that are being mean to you aren't always being mean to you. And sometimes the people that are being nice to you aren't always being nice to you. But you won't know the difference until much later on. So that was one. And the other one was, whilst I was making one of my small mistakes, I would say, I was told that it's better to observe and listen twice as hard as speaking, because it's better sometimes for people to think you're an idiot than to open your mouth and prove that you're an idiot.
Very good. So I was looking at this question about, are we a more, well, we've obviously got perhaps fewer barrow boy bankers in the industry, but are we a more diverse and inclusive industry aside from that? What more could we do on that front?
I think absolutely we are, but there's so much more work to be done. I think you made mention of this in one of your previous interviews about the lack of female staff sat in this chair, about the lack of ethnic minorities that sat in this chair. But what really interests me about diversity, and where I think I'm more focused, is in social mobility and cognitive diversity. And the reason for that is because I think it's difficult to measure that. It's very difficult to measure that. And when it comes to social mobility, I think there's great initiatives in terms of university graduates and things like that. But you've got to get to them at a lot younger age. You've got to go into the schools, you've got to show financial education at that point and show a pathway into the city and into finance. So that's on the social mobility side. And then on the cognitive diversity side, I think we're very focused on doing a degree, doing professional exams, and going through that sausage machine. But if you're cognitively diverse, you might not be able to exam well. That doesn't mean you have nothing to offer. You've just got to do it slightly differently. And excuse me here, I'm gonna do a Donald Trump, and I'm gonna do a weave.
Right.
And I'm gonna do a weave back to your AI question, and about technology, and about how that can be a benefit or a hindrance. And in that sense, it's important that AI and technology makes it easy to make job applications. Those days of the milk rounds are almost now non-existent. But people can interview and apply for loads of different jobs. What that normally means is that the HR departments are overwhelmed. So then they start applying filters to whittle down the CVs. But then as a recruiting manager, you're like, well, all my CVs look the same. But they look the same because you've applied the same filter to all of them. So that's a hindrance where technology and AI have hindered. But you could also then use it as a positive to then go, well, I can use AI to ask different types of questions. Questions which target certain characteristics, and use that as a filter, and then you can get a diverse range of CVs in front of you. So I think that's really important. And sorry, this is a very long-winded answer to your question, but I do think it's important because once you're in the system, then how do you actually keep people in that system? How do you retain the talent? And that's always been a challenge, and that's why you to your point about how many women sit in this chair, how many ethnic, it's because the talent pool keeps shrinking every time you go up a level. So as a business, as an industry, we've got to do more to maintain people. So one of the things Bourdieu does, which I think is great, is we flex the working day. So you can start earlier and you can finish earlier, or you can start later and you can finish later. So if you've got care responsibilities, you can work your day around that. If you want to, I don't know, for your mental health, you want to have a run in the morning, or you want to go to the gym, do some yoga or exercise. Not something I can empathise with. I just want to say that. But you know, if that's what you want,
we can imagine these things.
We can
happening.
imagine these things.
Yeah.
Absolutely, and it'll allow you to do that. So flexing the working day to accommodate a better balance should also help, because it's not enough filling the system. You've got to then retain the people in the system as well.
Very good. Last question then. We call this choice words because of the professional choices you make, but we're asking for two personal ones now. One's for a book. Doesn't have to be an investment book, but it can be. The other one's a free hit, just to help people live a better life.
Okay. So I thought it had to be an investment book. So I did have an investment book, but actually I'm going to be
Have both.
I'm going to be greedy. I'm going to say two. So in an investment book, I like Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel, and his surname
Kahneman.
is. Yep, there you go. I think that's a great investment book. Just talks to you about how people process information and our biases and where we should. And I think that helps a lot in understanding behavioral finance as well.
Sure.
But the book I really like, and the reason I like it is because of what it does, is I'm currently reading The Chinese Cinderella with my daughter. And that's my favorite book right now, because I think that's what books should do. They should engage with people. They should have a debate. They should expand your horizons, make you think about the world. And I really just enjoy that quality time with her. So that's my favorite book.
Excellent.
And to answer the second question, and if I may be so presumptive as to think that anyone would want to hear about a bit of advice from me, I would say to people starting the industry, do something that makes you feel uncomfortable. Do something that pushes the boundaries. Do something that's different in combination with your day job, because we are in a wonderful industry and there are great opportunities and great things you will see and experience. But there are also going to be down days and dark days, and doing something that makes you feel uncomfortable contextualizes that and puts it into perspective for you. And because I mentioned Trump, I feel the need to also mention Churchill. And he's got a great saying about, you know, if you're going through hell, keep traveling. And that's really the bit of choice words, I would say.
Very well, the choice words indeed. Very good. No, I like it. Nice and nice, triumphant ending. Dipesh, thank you so much. Thank you very much for your time as well.
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. And thank you very much for watching. Do look out for further episodes of Choice Words as and when they are published.